Power ranking time, herd hierarchy going into week 11. A lot of shaking up last week, a lot of upsets. You had Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Crazy games. Jacksonville got blown out, crucified. Somebody call Mel Gibson. Before we talk about Colin's top 10, let's take a look at mine. This was the top 10 going into the weekend. This is the top 10 now. Caveat. Since I made this list on Tuesday, the Browns have announced that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is now the starting quarterback. Deshaun Watson out for the year with a fractured shoulder. He's having surgery. If I knew that, I would not have had the Browns 8, but because of the list, because of the ethical reasons, I'm going to leave the list as is. But just know, with DTR or PJ Walker as a starting quarterback, I would not have the Browns as the 8th best team in the NFL. The rest of the list, kind of the same at the top. Eagles, Chiefs, the Lions jump up to 3. They beat the Chargers. The Lions are so good. So good. We've been saying it for weeks now. They're probably going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. Right now, I would pick them to win this or to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC side. They're just so impressive. They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. I don't care if they're a 1-point favorite, a 5-point favorite, a 7-point favorite. They get the job done. Dan Campbell is just so refreshing, the way he coaches, the way he makes decisions. The Ravens, horrible loss. They're dominating the game. They allowed Deshaun Watson with one arm to come back and beat them. And then, so untimely because they lose to the Browns, divisional game, and then immediately the Browns announce that Watson's out. So now the Browns play the Steelers. So the Steelers benefit from it greatly, right? They get a divisional game against DTR where the Ravens just dropped a divisional game, and it was the last thing Watson did. So really, really, really bad for the Ravens. That makes this Cincinnati game Thursday even more important because if Baltimore drops that game, all of a sudden Cincinnati's right back into they could win the division. But if Baltimore beats Cincy, Baltimore pretty much locks it up. Dallas, we know what they do. They beat bad teams. The Giants are a bad team. San Francisco destroyed Jacksonville. Turns out Kyle Shanahan off a bye. Pretty good. Turns out Deebo Samuel back on the field. Pretty good. Miami, nothing to say there. They play the Raiders this week. Should be easy. Browns, we talked about them. The Bengals, bad loss for Cincy. We thought Cincy was kind of firing on all cylinders. The Texans got them. The Texans are playing really good football right now, but Cincy can't drop these games. Cincy had a bad start, so now they had to have a really good finish. They can't have a bad start, a mediocre middle, and then a good finish. Like, they'll miss the playoffs. So Cincy pretty much has to win at Baltimore Thursday night. And here's a little news for you, or a little note for you. Cincinnati, I think in the last 25 games is the stat, 25 night games on the road, they're like 2-23. Which is kind of crazy because you would think Burrow-led teams would be better. I know that's not all Burrow, but still, you would think the record would be better. They're behind the 8 ball for sure. And the way that it's all clumped up, a good team's going to miss the playoffs. I mean, you're talking about Houston making a run. Pittsburgh, right now, I think is in the playoffs. You've got the Broncos making a run. You've got the Chargers, always hanging around. So if teams like Cincinnati slip up and teams like the Texans continue playing really well, they could jump them. So the AFC, same with Baltimore. If Baltimore loses to Cincinnati on Thursday and they keep dropping games, there's teams down here that are ready to take those spots. Buffalo's hanging around. The AFC's jumbled up. The AFC's big time jumbled up. The Browns, are they going to make the playoffs? Not with DTR, probably not. But then again, their defense is good enough they might keep them in some games. We saw them with PJ Walker beat the 49ers, so who knows? So let's go ahead and get to Colin Cowherd's top 10, and we'll react along the way.
10 teams in the league, fire away.
Herd hierarchy.
Time is now, let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
Let's not overreact to Jacksonville. They've won 13 of their last 18.
All right, there you go. Yeah, we're not overreacting, but bad loss. Really bad loss. 6-3. I think this is fine, dropping them to 10. They just gotta. We talked about this before the season, where it's a big jump to go from bad to good to then people think you're great, right? It's much easier to go from bad to good than good to great. Jacksonville is still trying to find their way. They're still trying to find their way in that jump from good to great. And they're going to need Trevor Lawrence to be the one who really catapults that jump. Detroit has pretty much done what Jacksonville wants to do. Detroit went from a team that was bad to a team that was good with a lot of promise, and they're showing that promise. So Jacksonville needs to kind of follow that track.
Games, they still have a star quarterback. When ATN scores, they win. He didn't, they didn't. They have 18 takeaways this year. Offensive coach. I still think they're a bit of a rebuilding roster.
Yeah.
But, they can't beat the Chiefs, and they were hammered by San Francisco, but I still think they're a top 10 team in the
Yeah, that's probably right. They're probably a top 10 team. As far as the rebuilding, though, problematic situation, Trevor Lawrence is about to have to get paid. So if Trevor Lawrence gets a $250 million contract, rebuilding all of a sudden becomes much more difficult. So Jacksonville is going to have to make some tough decisions moving forward while they figure out the Trevor Lawrence contract. Trevor will get paid. That's not the decision. The decision is, okay, we give him $250 million. How do we build out the rest of this roster moving forward?
Number 9.
Seattle. Schedule gets really rough. They got the Niners, Cowboys, Niners.
Yeah, I thought about having Seattle in the top 10. They probably would have made it if I dropped Cleveland. More than likely, Seattle would have went in. Seattle's got a tough schedule, 100% right. They're getting healthier. Especially their secondary, getting a little healthier. They play San Francisco coming up. Difficult. They're going to have to upset some teams. They're going to have to have a hot finish to the season, and they need Geno to be better. They need Geno to be closer to the Geno from last year, not the Geno from the front half of this year.
Again, Eagles coming up, but 2 of their losses have been to the Bengals and the Ravens, so you can lose to good teams. I do think Geno Smith has gotten a bit turnover prone, did not have a turnover for the first time since week 4. I don't see Geno as a guy that hoists a trophy. I don't see the Seahawks as a Super Bowl team, but 9 feels fitting.
That's about right.
8.
Yeah.
Cleveland. Listen, they were missing.
Man, me and Colin are seeing things clear. I'm pretty sure he did this video before the Deshaun news as well. So I'll kind of give him a pass on what he says here. Unfortunate for Browns fans, but
Their 3 best offensive tackles against the Ravens, and they won. And they're 3-1. Let's give them credit against the Niners, Bengals, and Ravens. So they're beating good teams.
Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson, as a starter, is 5-1. And there were multiple moments in that game where you were like, okay,
he was really good in the second half.
Watson,
really
this
good.
is going to be a playoff team. He's good. Now, I don't feel he's quite what he was at his prime, but it's like Russell Wilson. I see some of it. Like last night with Russell. I saw a lot of it.
The thing with the Browns, too, is that the Browns aren't winning 17-10. They're not wholly winning because of their defense. I mean, they're winning some kind of shootout games against good teams.
With Deshaun this past weekend, second half, 14-14. I saw it. So I have Cleveland at 8.
Number 7.
Dallas at 7. Again, they played the easiest schedule in the NFL so far.
Yeah.
All 6 wins against teams with currently a losing record. They have this tied for the most penalties in the league. I don't trust them situationally. They're very good at home, so-so on the road. That's why I won't put them higher. I think they're incredibly predictable, incredibly reliant on CeeDee Lamb, who's great now, has become an absolute top.
Man, we're pretty wild. Me and Collins are absolutely in line with what we're saying with these teams. Dallas is very predictable. They face a bad team, they're going to dominate. They're going to blow that team out. They play a good team, probably going to fall short. Dallas is right now in the playoffs. I believe their matchup is on the road against the Saints. It'd be on the road here in the Dome, first round of the playoffs. So that's interesting. But, Dallas kind of feels like Dallas is like a sexier Seattle. They do have a ceiling. They are a top 10 team, but they're probably not a legit contender. At the same time, you don't really want to play them in the playoffs because they have enough weapons. They have enough going on that they could beat you. But Dallas is an interesting team. Dallas is, because they're in some ways they're better than people think. It's just they cannot get over that hump. They cannot get to where, McCarthy and Dak and who they have, like, they kind of have a ceiling. But they are dangerous. They are, they took Philly to the limit. If you let them, they will absolutely dominate you defensively. They will turn the ball over. They will get the ball from you. They can put up points if they want to. CeeDee Lamb is a superstar, but it seems like when they have to, when it comes to those playoff games or big moments against the 49ers or the Eagles or whatever, it just seems like they can't, for some reason, they just can't get there.
6'7" guy in the league, number 1. Cowboys at 7.
Number 6.
But I trust Detroit more because I think they have more players at a high level in their.
Detroit should be higher. I mean, 6 is nuts. Detroit's 7-2. Detroit's 7-2, beating teams every week. Again, you're looking at like the worst case, the 2 seed in the NFC. I don't see how they're 6. I mean, I'm sure the top 5 for Colin is going to be some combination of Philadelphia, Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati. Who am I missing? Who else is going to be up in there? I don't know, but I just don't think Detroit's 6.
Prime, not as reliant on one-star receiver. 2 backs I like. 15-4 last 19 games. This defense was awful last year. It's a top 10 defense. Don't love their defense on the back end, but I really like Detroit.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
awesome.
They're going to host a playoff game, and I think they're going to win a home playoff game at least.
Host a playoff game? Brother, they are going to run away with the NFC North. They're going to host a few playoff games. They're going to be the 1 seed. They could host every playoff game until the Super Bowl.
Number 5.
Bengals are a bit beat up on their defensive front, and that worries me. But Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, this offensive staff.
So Cincinnati, last week we talked about how in my power rankings, I don't move teams up that much at once. Because when you do that, you can kind of back yourself into a corner. Colin backed himself into a corner, putting the Bengals at 3 last week. The Bengals right now, here's the real. They don't have a win in the division. They are -10 in point differential. They are missing the playoffs. They're last in the division. So when you have a last in the division team with a negative point differential who has not won a game in the division, and you have them as a top 5 team in the NFL, I don't know about that. I definitely believe Cincinnati has a ton of potential, a ton of promise, but they are running out of time. They are running out of time. They can't lose games like Houston. Because then if they lose this, I'm telling you, if they lose to Baltimore Thursday, which they certainly could, then, it's going to be kind of hard it's going to be hard for them to navigate through the rest of the season to even make the playoffs, much less make a run in the playoffs. So I like Joe Burrow as much as the next guy. I like Jamar Chase as much as the next guy. I see the bigger picture with Cincy, how talented they are, but at some point in the NFL season, results have to happen. And it's kind of funny to look at it now, to look at that Colin had his 3rd team in the NFL, 3rd best team in the NFL, is a last place in the division team with a negative point differential who's missing the playoffs, who hasn't won a divisional game. Like, only the Bengals could do that because people like Joe Burrow so much.
Pretty good, right? He leads the NFL in completion percentage week 5 on, 74%. I'm sorry, I'm taking the points and the hook, 3.5 against the Ravens. I don't care about their injury situation. I trust Burrow in big spots. Let's not go crazy. If Boyd catches that ball in the end zone, they probably win. Cincy at 5.
Number 4.
Don't forget what I said. Colin said I trust Burrow in big spots. The Bengals are, whatever it is, 2-23 in night games on the road. Those are all big spots, right? So it's one of those things where, yeah, Joe Cool, Joe Breezy, all the intangibles, but again, at some point, results have to be there.
Don't freak out with Baltimore, although there is.
All right, I think I have Baltimore at 4 as well. Yep, don't freak out with them. But Lamar is turning the ball over a lot. I believe it's 12 turnovers in 3 games. Somebody check me on that. Might be 12-4, something like that. Baltimore's awesome. They could easily be undefeated. I'm not panicking with them, but they are one of those teams where they can be volatile, and they can do this. They can kind of blow games. Lamar can turn the ball over, especially in tight games and late in the game. So certainly not panicking, but they do have to win Thursday. If they don't win Thursday, if I was a Baltimore Ravens fan, I would start to panic.
It's a disturbing trend. They become a bad fourth quarter team because of turnovers, but they're the number one rushing offense and the number one scoring defense. They should have beaten Pittsburgh, but there were drop passes, and they probably should have beaten the Colts. In the end, their defense allows the lowest passer rating in the NFL. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Baltimore at 4.
Number 3.
Maybe I've got Philadelphia low.
Yeah, I think you got them a little low. Now they are going to play the Chiefs Monday night. We're going to find out a lot about them Monday night. That's all I'll say. I think Kansas City might win that game. It's a different video for a different day. But I do think Philly is a little low here. 8-1, won the Super Bowl last year. Such a talented roster. We know why they're good. They prove it every week. So I think 3's on the low end, but I'm not going to kill somebody for a couple spots. Philly's sweet, no doubt about it. They're underrated. Sweet.
But they've lost the turnover battle in 4 of the 5 games. They just sort of grind you down. They're so deep. The story of this team is Jalen Hurts and this general manager. I don't know what bank they're using, but they just keep adding good players. They wear you down. And I'll say this organization's just better when it counts. They've beaten 12 straight teams with winning records in the regular season. Like, that's the opposite of the Cowboys. They
100%,
are often their best in the big games. Dallas is their best against the lousy teams.
Number 2.
When healthy, it's the best roster in the NFL easily.
Probably. I don't know about easily, but probably. Frisco's super good. San Francisco showed you, hey, look, we were hurt. Look what happens when we're not injured, when we're all there. This is what we can do. San Francisco reminded us just how good they are, how dangerous they are. It's a 3-horse race in the NFC. It's the Lions, Niners, Eagles. Who do you trust? The book is still kind of out on Brock Purdy. If I'm going into the playoffs and I've got Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, is Purdy number 3 on that list? Probably. So they're good, no doubt about it. They're not. At the beginning of the year, we were talking about San Francisco as like one of the best teams we've ever seen, power rating wise. They aren't that, but they are really good. They are a legit threat to come out of the NFC, for sure.
Trent Williams, Debo back. They annihilate Jacksonville. I know Brock Purdy. That's why I don't have him number 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, even compared to the other top teams in the league, they have literally Pro Bowlers on every unit.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one outside of maybe quarterback and cornerback. And when they get Trent Williams, they win. Debo, Christian McCaffrey, hell, they may not be as the year progresses. They do have a team with a lot of physical players. Debo, McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Kittle, Bosa. Those guys may not be healthy at the end of the year. But when they are, give me a break. They're completely stacked.
Yeah.
Number
100%.
1.
Well, it's an interim year. A lot of interim coaches and interim quarterbacks. This could be an interim choice for me. I don't know how long it'll last.
Casey, you talk about Andy Reid, man. Andy Reid's just so good. Kansas City, I still have concerns. I said draw a line through them. I have real concerns about the offense. If they beat Philly, which I think they will, if they beat Philly, we'll have to reconsider this, because they might be just one of those teams that's so good organizationally, and Patrick Mahomes is so good, and the defense is good, that maybe they can figure this out. Maybe they don't need this high-flying, crazy good offense. In the playoffs, though, I feel like they will need that. KC is one of those teams where, I think I'm down on them, and I'm kind of drawing a line in the sand, and they could make me pay. They could kind of make me eat my words with this one. I'm not going to argue and say they are for sure not the best team in the NFL. It'd be hard for me to back this team with the way their offense is playing. That's all I'll say.
But they're the best team in the league. Situationally great. By the way, they're coming off a bye. Andy Reid's 27-4 off a bye, including the
he's
playoffs.
insane off a bye.
They'll win this coming week. Here's the thing that worries me, though. In the second half this season, they're the worst scoring offense. So the thing with them is, what's that mean is, they can't be the old Chiefs where they can get behind 21-3. And they're not going to put you away. What they need to do is get a lead. That isn't the Chiefs generally that have won a Super Bowl. They didn't need a lead. They just needed the ball late.
Right.
This team has to.
That's the problem. That's the big problem I have with this is that what happens when you play these elite offenses who are going to score? In today's NFL, I don't care how good your defense is. You give a really good offense the ball, they're probably going to score. You're not going to hold Baltimore and Cincy and Philly and San Francisco or whoever. You're not going to hold them consistently no matter how good your defense is. At some point, they're going to start scoring. So what happens in the playoffs when Kansas City is facing these really good offenses? Is their defense that good to where we're just going to expect them to shut them down every week? That seems kind of hard to believe.
Play a certain way. They've got to take a lead. They can't be sloppy. The good news is it's the best defense Mahomes has ever had.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll get better as it gets healthier. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching.
There you go. Very similar top 10. Colin's and mine this week. We're definitely seeing the same things. We're definitely, I would say this week has probably been the one where we are the most in line. Was it the full? Did we have the exact same top 10? No, who did I have instead of Seattle? Because I didn't have Seattle in. Who do I have on my list? Let's see. Miami. Okay, I still have Miami. Yeah, I think Miami's better than Seattle. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Let me know in the comments below, ladies and gentlemen, where you come down on this. Who's your top 10? Where was I right? Where was Colin wrong? Or vice versa? Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.